video is going to be a little bit different because instead of talking so much about like practical things of screenwriting or technique things, this is going to be more like on the inspirational side. I shouldn't put quotes like that because it actually kind of demeans what I'm trying to do. But one thing that became a topic of discussion over this last year, not only with workshops that I was doing for writers, producers that I tried to work with and write for, and also just among like screenwriting message boards, is this idea that producers in the film industry want writers with a voice. But the big discussion and sort of discourse of it is a lot of the blandest writing, a lot of the more non-inventive, unique writing gets kind of picked over. And there's going to be a little bit more depth to what I'm saying here. Besides, it's not a hating or a bitterness type or a resentful thing, because there actually is a lot of like consideration for what I just said. And that a lot of producers and people up at the top who kind of like, executives or whatever, however you want to define them, are demanding for more voices. But yet when you get down to like the nitty gritty and working with these people, they're usually the first ones to kill the voice. I've experienced it, and a lot of people that I've done workshops on and workshops with have experienced it, where they write with all this conviction, this voice, this creativity, this flair, and producers, executive producers, and other people say, "Oh, you're overriding. You're doing too much. We don't need to have all this fluff. We just need to have this person go do A, B, and C." And then you do that. You compromise. You do A, B, and C. You water it down a bit. You get to keep some stuff, but most of it you don't. And then you get told, well, there's no voice. I remember there was a script that I wrote. We took out a bunch of stuff where I added a lot of layers and depth to the characters, and like almost, I don't want to say like a novel, but like I'm putting creative writing into it that got taken out. And then I'm being told the writing doesn't stand out. Well, of course it doesn't. It's just, I'm writing just the most basic form of action and descriptions because you're telling me to do that. And other writers have dealt with that as well. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. And it can create a very discouraging pursuit, especially since writing and having a career in writing is, one, very fickle. You can sell a script for $500,000 and then never sell another script afterwards. You can be writing for TV shows for 3 years and then never be able to write again or afford rent a few years later. You can be at this for 20 years before you catch your first publication, like a novel, or sell your first screen, or have a first movie made. I mean, a lot of screenwriters that are very successful are usually ones that just didn't quit. And that's it's optimistic because it says, oh, I don't have to be successful before 30 or 40, but it's also very discouraging because it's like, what if I do this for 30, 40 years and I don't make a career out of it? It's very hard. And going back to what I was saying, a lot of scripts that get sold and picked up that people are like, this is very bland, unique. How did this get picked up? It's usually because the writer the original script probably had a lot of that flair, probably had a lot of that creativity. And then they were told to compromise and compromise. And then because they compromised a lot, it became this bland, voiceless thing. But they built a relationship, or the right person liked it and decided to take a chance on it. Because there's a lot of scripts that technically on the more basic aspect aren't good, but I've met so many writers and I've been doing this for so long, it maybe wasn't always like that. There's a lot of really great scripts that get bastardized through the process and end up bad. There's a lot of bad scripts that get developed really well and end up great. So I think a lot of it really comes down to is the lack of autonomy that a lot of writers have. And I would want new writers to really triple, quadruple down on not losing that voice. It is much better to be told you're overwriting than there's nothing in your writing. I'm telling you, getting rejected because you're trying too hard to be creative and too hard to be a writer is a much better badge of honor than like, well, it was boring or the writing didn't really stand out to me, which by the way, you can get that even if you write incredibly well in the actions and descriptions and all of that. I have read scripts that have been written so beautifully and people would say that the writing doesn't stand out. I've had it said to me, it doesn't really matter to me much, but for other writers who have had that happen, it really breaks them. And they end up wanting to quit and do all this other, sort of like knee-jerk reactions. But a lot of people up at the top, unfortunately, don't know what they're doing. And it's not just me who says it. I will say it, and I will understand a lot of people may say that I'm being bitter or whatever, but this is an open discussion with a lot of writers and even actors. An actor friend of mine, I was telling him about a workshop I was doing with somebody and how in the original first few drafts they had written with a lot of style, a lot of creative flair, and then they were told that they were overdoing it, so they watered it down to the most basic form of action and descriptions. And this was a dozen drafts in, and then those same people were telling this writer their writing isn't exciting. And so in the workshop, we had to go back several drafts to those original ones where they were writing with all of this flair and style and their own voice and using their own quirkiness. And it was just very frustrating because they were like, I don't know what to do. It's like nothing. They want it this way, and then I give it to them that way. They said it's not good, and it needs to be the opposite. Then I do that. Now they say it needs to go back to what it was before. And I was telling my acting friend this, and he says, well, that's the first problem is everybody's listening to producers. And so it's not just the writers feeling that way, it's the actors too. And with all due respect, I have producer friends that actually know how to respect that craft of writing and the style and flair, but those are very far and few in between. So even though my friend Tina, she's a legit producer that encourages that in screenwriting, but she's one of probably 500 or 1,000 that actually genuinely backs that up. So it's really hard. But what I want to do, and this is a little bit kind of maybe out of left field a bit, but for new writers, I want to read you an excerpt from a book, and I've recommended this on the TikTok. It's by Osamu Dazai. It's called No Longer Human. All right, hopefully, there you go. I'm going to read a passage. It's about a page long, and I really want all of you to feel and hear the voice, but also encourage you to pursue this level of writing, even in screenwriting. A lot of people will tell you never do novel writing and screenwriting. Fuck that, okay? Everybody's been complaining too long about how uninspiring so much overall screenwriting has become that if you're all new writers, seriously say fuck that and go for it, okay? And in just this one page, you have so much voice and soul, so to speak. That should be your accomplishment, which you should strive for. That first page and every other page after that in your screenplay. Obviously, if you just need to write, he gets up and leaves, just write he gets up and leaves. You don't have to make it so abstract and ethereal, but I'm going to read this and just listen to it, okay? Give me a second here. Okay. Irrationality. I found the thought faintly pleasurable, or rather, I felt at ease with it. What frightened me was the logic of the world. In it lay the foretaste of something incalculably powerful. Its mechanism was incomprehensible, and I could not possibly remain closeted in that windowless, bone-chilling room. Though outside lay the sea of irrationality, it was far more agreeable to swim in its waters until presently I drowned. People talk of social outcasts. The words apparently denote the miserable losers of the world, the vicious ones, but I feel as though I have been a social outcast from the moment I was born. If ever I went, if ever I meet someone society has designated as an outcast, I invariably feel affection for him, an emotion which carries me away in melting tenderness. People also talk of a criminal consciousness. All my life in this world of human beings, I have been tortured by such a consciousness, but it has been my faithful companion, like a wife in poverty, and together, just the two of us, we have indulged in our forlorn pleasures. Perhaps has been one of the attitudes in which I have gone on living. People also commonly speak of the wound of a guilty conscience. In my case, the wound appeared of itself when I was an infant, and with the passage of time, far from healing, it has grown only the deeper until now it has reached the bone. The agonies I have suffered night after night have made for a hell composed of an infinite diversity of tortures. But, though this is a very strange way to put it, the wound has gradually become dearer to me than my own flesh and blood, and I have thought its pain to be the emotion of the wound as it lived, or even its murmur of affection. So yeah, that's all I really have to say about this. When I read that passage, it just, that, all I could think of was like, what a voice. And I hope that hearing that, you felt the same way.